Along Route 39, outside Kitami, a road crew bolts red and white arrow markers to the guardrails, each one angled downward to show drivers where the edge of the road will be once the surface disappears in December. On the Tokachi Plain, at 4 in the morning and -11, a dairy farmer flips on the milking parlour lights, and the herd's breath fogs the cold steel. In Otaru, at 20 to 8, inside a former herring warehouse that is now a coffee counter, steam lifts off a paper cup while the harbour ice creaks. This is Hokkaido, Japan's northern island, a place most Japanese families reached only within the last century and a half, surveyed and built to order by the Meiji government and the American advisors it hired. Among them, a college master named William Clark. Nearly everyone here can name the year their family came over, by ship, by rail, by government order. And almost no one mentions who was already living on the land they were given. What follows is 5 turns outward, from a capital ruled off a ruler, to soldier farmers, to a European larder, to a renamed people, to the frozen coast where the newcomers stay.
Odori Park is less a garden dropped into the city than the ruler the city was measured against. It runs dead straight through the center of Sapporo, east to west, a snow-lined axis more than a kilometer long, with the television tower shrinking to a lit point at one end. For half the year, that axis is a working snowfield, plows scraping it before dawn, and the crews trucking in still more snow each February to raise the sculptures that crowds come to stand in the cold and photograph. Every address hangs off this line. Streets are not named, but numbered, counted outward as North 3, West 6, so that a Sapporo address reads less like a place than a coordinate on a spreadsheet. The plan was drawn in 1869, the year the Meiji government created the Colonization Commission, charged with turning a wild northern island into a modern prefecture, and it hired American surveyors who laid the capital out the way they had seen cities laid out on the plains of the Midwest. From the observation deck of the Sapporo TV tower, the whole argument is visible at once. A lattice of right angles glowing under snow. A city that can be spelled in numbers. There is no castle at the center, no lord's keep, no old temple district curling the streets around it. Where another Japanese city would carry 6 centuries of accident in its lanes, Sapporo carries a single decade of intention, and it has never once pretended otherwise. Because the streets are coordinates, no one here gets lost the way visitors get lost in Kyoto or Tokyo. A resident reads the numbered blocks the way others read a compass. And a child can be sent 9 blocks north and 3 west and arrive without a map. Green streetcars still run a loop through the central grid, trundling past the former Hokkaido government office, a red brick pile built in 1888 in imported American neo-Baroque, its octagonal dome and Boston Mill masonry raised deliberately to look like anywhere but Japan. When the sidewalks vanish under a meter of packed snow, the city moves underground instead, through heated concourses that link the stations beneath the frozen surface, so that an office worker can cross half of downtown in shirt sleeves while it storms overhead. And above one intersection stands the reason the whole grid keeps time. The clock tower on the corner of North 1, West 2 is not a keep, but a former military drill hall of the Agricultural College, and its Howard mechanism, shipped from Boston, has struck the hour since 1881. Each week, one caretaker climbs a narrow wooden stair to the loft, fits an iron crank to the movement, and winds it by hand. 40 turns. The same weights dropping the same distance they have dropped for 140 years. An un-Japanese heartbeat ticking over an oiled table in a cold room, while the city runs on the time it keeps. The order that built the streets also built the minds that run them. Hokkaido University grew out of the Sapporo Agricultural College, whose first vice principal was an American, William Smith Clark, a chemistry professor from Massachusetts who stayed barely 8 months before sailing home. His parting words to the first class, "Boys, be ambitious," are still recited across the island, printed in textbooks and carved on the campus he left. The college became the university, and the blueprint kept running. Today, some 18,000 students cross an avenue of ginkgo and poplar that Clark's colleagues planted, wheeling bicycles through the snow, chaining them to racks half buried in white. In a lecture hall along the same grid, a radiator ticks against the cold, while a first year from a fishing town on the Sea of Japan takes notes she will carry back, or more likely, will not. Because Sapporo holds nearly 2 million people, and the coast towns are emptying toward it. The young leave the villages their great-grandparents were ordered to settle, and follow the ruled streets into the one city on the island large enough to keep them. The grid does not stop at the tram lines. It keeps marching north into the fields, where the men who farm them keep a rifle by the door.
North of the central grid, the streets keep their right angles, but the lots grow larger and more even, and the district they make was settled as a garrison colony, a purpose it has never stopped serving. In the last decades of the 19th century, the Tondenhai, the garrison field soldiers, were handed a plot and a duty in the same breath: to break the northern soil through the short summer and to hold it against Russia if the order ever came. The families who work these plots today still farm the same rectangles their great-grandfathers were issued, the fence lines unmoved in 5 generations, though many now lease their fields to a neighbor with the machinery to work them. Where the farm is dairy, the pay can be real money rather than romance. Official 2018 farm management figures put the average dairy household's agricultural income at about 14.6 million yen a year before it is divided among the family members doing the work. An hour east, the town of Ebetsu was drawn on paper before a single family settled it, its river clay dug and fired in brick kilns that still stand along the tracks. From the road, the allotment lines run parallel under the snow, legible as the handwriting of a plan. And at the Sapporo Agricultural College second farm, the barn every colonist was told to copy still stands. A stone and timber American stock barn with a silo raised beside it, the pattern the whole island's dairy trade would grow out of. Inside, the wooden peg where a service rifle once hung now holds a child's pair of snow boots. And on a table, covered in worn oilcloth, a kettle ticks slowly toward the boil, set for 1. The same border logic that armed the fields pushed the grid on inland, and where it reached the middle of the island, it raised a garrison city. Asahikawa grew up around the Army's 7th Division, the soldiers arriving first and the streets following after, until it became the second city of Hokkaido and one of the coldest places in Japan, its winters holding for weeks below -20. The lowest temperature ever recorded in the country was measured here, -41. And though such a reading is rare, the cold it points to sets the terms of every household's year. Here, heating is the heaviest single line in the winter budget. A kerosene truck works the residential blocks all through the dark months, its hose filling the steel tank that stands in nearly every yard. And one household can burn well past 100 liters in the coldest month alone. The stove left running day and night because a house that goes cold in Asahikawa freezes its own pipes. By the time spring comes, a family may have spent 100,000 yen or more on the kerosene alone. A noticeable household bill against one median Hokkaido full-time worker's income of about 3.5 million yen a year. The city itself budgets several billion yen each winter simply to haul the snow away, and what the city cannot reach, the household clears itself, by hand, before dawn. An hour on the shovel before work, the roof cleared before its load turns to ice, the second panes of glass, the winter boots outgrown each year, so that a family here sets aside for the plain work of staying warm what a family in Osaka would never think to budget. Within a single generation, the rifles were gone from the barns, and the same fields those soldiers first broke were feeding the island a menu that no one in old Japan would have recognized. The menu those fields turned out was not the rice and river fish of the older islands, but a larder copied almost wholesale from the West, because the Meiji government had decided that a modern country ought to eat the way modern countries ate, and it set about teaching a northern island to do so. On the Tokachi Plain, the dairy herds now supply more than half of all the raw milk in Japan, close to 4 million tons a year, churned into butter and cheese and cream on an island that kept no dairy cattle at all before the surveyors arrived. West of the plain, the ground runs to wheat and to the potatoes first planted as a hedge against famine and now lifted here by the million tons, near enough 8 of every 10 the whole country grows. And in Sapporo, the government did a stranger thing still, building a brewery of its own and stamping its bottles with the red star of the Colonization Commission, a mark that still stands on every green can of Sapporo beer poured today. Down the same streets, a bowl of ramen comes up thick with miso and butter and a knuckle of sweet corn, a Sapporo invention built to hold heat in a body walking home through the snow. And it crosses the counter for around 900 yen. Around a low table in a backstreet grill, the island's other borrowed appetite waits on a domed iron skillet. Jingisukan, mutton and sliced onion, named for Genghis Khan, and cooked over the hump, so the fat runs down into the slotted rim. A dish that arrived when the state pressed sheep onto the northern pastures for military wool, and left behind a taste for lamb the rest of Japan never took up. An evening of it, all a table can eat and drink, runs a little over 2,000 yen a head. A family leans in over the smoke, a grandmother turning the meat with long iron chopsticks, the window gone white with steam from the inside, while the cold stands against the glass. Out past the last streetlights, the land itself keeps a calendar the rest of the country would not recognize. Around Furano and Bie, near the center of the island, the farmland rolls in long strips up and over the hills. Potatoes and wheat and beans and sugar beet laid down in bands of different green, so that from the road, the slopes read like the columns of a ledger. Hokkaido is the one part of Japan the summer rainfront does not reach, and so the seasons arrive here cleanly, and in turn, a short, hard spring, a dry, bright summer, an autumn that turns the birch gold inside a fortnight, and then the half year of snow the whole island is built around. The growing season is brief and worked without waste. The beet and the potatoes in and out of the ground between the last frost of May and the 1st of October, every hour of the long northern daylight spent. On a slope outside Furano, a grower walks his rows at first light and breaks a clod between finger and thumb to feel whether the warmth has come back into it. The lavender that fills the tour buses in July is no more than a narrow border along a field that earns its keep in potatoes, a summer sideline in a working year measured by the crop. The surveyors who ruled these fields into straight lines, though, did not find the hills empty when they arrived. Every river and mountain they measured already carried a name in a language the plan had no room for, belonging to a people the same government was, in those very years, preparing to write out of its law. The house the settlers raised to survive the winter looks almost nothing like the timber and paper house of the South. Across a century, Hokkaido gave up the deep eaves and the sliding paper screen for something nearer a Northern European design. Thick, insulated walls, a second and often a third pane of glass against the cold, and, in place of a roof pitched to drop its snow into the street, a flat or inward sloping roof that carries the meltwater down a pipe run through the heated middle of the house, so the load is drained away rather than shed. In nearly every yard, the same steel kerosene tank waits against the wall. Housing is one thing the island still offers cheaply. A small apartment in Sapporo lets for around 50,000 yen a month. And out in the settler towns, a whole farmhouse can be had for less than a year's rent in Tokyo, which is one reason the people who stay can afford to. Most of the island's 5 million people now live gathered into Sapporo and a handful of other cities, close to 2 million in the capital alone, while the farming and fishing districts thin year by year. The old settler houses left standing empty along roads that once carried a whole village to school. In the valley of the Saru River, in the town of Biratori, the settlement of Nibutani keeps a different account of who was on this land first. It is one of the few places where the Ainu, the indigenous people of the northern island, remain a large share of those who live there, and where the older names the surveyors wrote down as sounds are still spoken as words. Much of what survives was gathered by one man, Kayano Shigeru, born in Nibutani in 1926, a folklorist and woodcarver who filled a village museum with the tools and language of his people, and, in 1994, became the first Ainu to sit in the Japanese parliament. When the Colonization Commission drew its grid across the north, the island already carried a name in the language of the people who lived on it: Ainu Mosir, the quiet land where the people dwell. In 1869, it was renamed Hokkaido by ordinance, and 30 years on, the same government passed the Hokkaido Former Aborigines Protection Act of 1899. A law whose title alone reclassified a living people as former, a remnant to be absorbed. It took their hunting and fishing grounds and handed them poor plots on condition that they farm ground they had never farmed. It forbade the salmon fishing and the deer hunting the Ainu year had turned upon. It pushed the language out of use and the children into Japanese schools. The act stood on the books, amended but never repealed until 1997. And the Ainu were not recognized in Japanese law as an indigenous people until 2019. The deeper wound came out of the ground itself. From the late 19th century onward, researchers opened Ainu graves and carried the remains away for measurement. More than 1,600 sets of them, most kept for decades in the storerooms of Hokkaido University, the grown child of the same college that had taught the settlers to farm. Families who knew where their grandparents lay were never told the graves had been emptied, and only in the last 20 years, after lawsuits, have the bones begun to come home. In 2020, a memorial ossuary was raised for those whose communities can no longer be traced, on the shore of Lake Poroto at Shiraoi. Beside it stands the National Ainu Museum, opened the same year, where the language is taught aloud and sung again. And eastward, on the caldera shore of Lake Akan, a village of Ainu carvers and embroiderers works straight through the winter. An old man drawing an owl, a guardian spirit, out of a block of pale hardwood with a small curved blade, the pale shavings gathering at his feet beside the stove while the lake freezes outside. The same cold that seals the lake closes the sea along the coasts where the newcomers first came ashore, and, with nothing waiting behind them, made their homes.
"40 minutes northwest of Sapporo, on the Sea of Japan, the town of Otaru ends its day along a canal cut in 1923 to float herring from ship to shore. The stone warehouses lining the water once packed the catch that made this the wealthiest town on the coast, when the fish ran so thick that fortunes were built on them inside a single generation, until the herring stopped coming in the late 1950s and never returned. At dusk, a lamplighter works the length of the canal, touching a flame to 63 gas lamps one by one, and the light catches on the harbor ice as it creaks against the quay. Inside one of the old warehouses, now a coffee counter with a cast iron stove in the corner, a woman wipes down the zinc top and turns the sign for the night, steam still lifting from the last cup as she counts the till. Her grandfather, she will tell anyone who asks, came over from the Tohoku coast by ship in the 1920s to work the herring, and stayed on when the herring left, as most of them did, because by then there was nothing waiting to go back to. Almost everyone in Otaru can tell that story with a different port and a different decade, and almost no story among them reaches back more than 3 generations. East, on the Okhotsk side, the Notsuke Peninsula reaches into the Nemuro Strait, curving 26 kilometers in a thin hook barely raised above the sea. Each February, the drift ice arrives, the Ryūhyō, born in the mouth of the Amur River and carried south on the current until the strait sets solid and the small boats freeze in place. The ice comes later each decade now, and thinner, and the fishing towns that once timed their year to its arrival are the ones emptying fastest along this coast. On the spit itself, a drowned forest holds its ground. Larch and oak killed by seawater and left bleached in the salt marsh. In the failing afternoon light, a fox crosses the frozen flat on its own errand. At the top of the island, the railway simply runs out. Wakkanai is the last station on the line and the northernmost city in Japan. And from Cape Soya, the island of Sakhalin shows as a low grey line 43 kilometers across the strait, near enough that it was administered from this coast as Japanese territory until 1945. This is where the spiral outward finally stops, where the newcomers reached the literal end of the country and, against every reason to turn back, stayed. The families here keep the same account the families in Otaru keep: a port, a ship, a decade, a great-grandfather who came over and did not go home. The community holds because the work is assigned by name. Municipal plough crews keep the snow route open to the houses that remain. Volunteer fire brigades and fishing cooperatives check harbour households when the drift ice closes the strait, and grandmothers, aunts and neighbours take children after the long bus ride to the consolidated school. The boats still go out when the ice allows, and the kettle still ticks in a kitchen at the edge of the sea while the wind reads itself off the panes. And when the long dark thins toward morning and the first grey light comes up over the Sea of Japan, the ploughs are already out in Sapporo, scraping a street that was drawn on paper before anyone lived on it. On the Tokachi Plain, the 4 o'clock milking is long finished by the time the sun clears the silos, and the farmer whose herd steamed in the dark parlour hoses down the concrete and walks back across a field his great-grandfather was handed by the state, in a district that first existed on the surveyor's page. Nobody on this plain can claim roots in it older than the railway. The names underneath the Japanese names are older by centuries. Before 6 tomorrow, the plough crews will be out again, and by dark, the snow will stand taller than the road markers. The story carries on across the strait on Sakhalin, where a different empire ruled its own straight lines into the same snow, and where the next Nationscape documentary waits.